Howdy, y'all. Welcome back to Ireland Bound. We are at Chapter 6. And I know it might seem like a bit of an overload, but I'm actually going to have 3 people in this one. 2 of them were my grandfather's uncles, and one of them was my grandfather's brother. The reason I'm doing this is because I don't have a lot of pictures for 2 of them, and I don't have a whole lot of stories for them either. So I just figured, put them together because they play a bit of a part in some stories I want to tell later on about my grandfather and some of the things that shaped his life. So, being a storyteller, I felt like I needed to introduce them into this narrative. I needed to tell you who they were so that when I mention names, y'all can go back and go, oh yeah, that was Chapter 6. This was these 2 people that she's talking about. So, that way, like I said, you have a point of reference and you already get to know a little bit about the characters. One of them was Merrill, another was Ennell, and that was my grandfather's uncles. Ennell was actually the youngest one, but of course I'll get more into that. And the other one, Neil, was my grandfather's brother. So, like I said, there's some stories that involve them, and like I said, it makes more sense to talk about them now instead of having to go back and say, okay, now these were the people that we were talking about. So, anyways, also too, I know I usually do this at the end, but I noticed something in my YouTube Studio app that kind of made me laugh a little bit. There's a lot of people watching some of the videos, but I don't have that many that are subscribed. Real simple thing. If you're watching the video, if you're enjoying it, if you're the one that has seen the first 3 videos and you have knocked them way up over the area of how many viewers I actually have, go back there, big red button. It says subscribe on it. Down there in the comments section, you just go down there, you see that big red button, you press it, you get 3 bell icons, you hit the top one, which says all, and then that way anything I post, you become aware of it and you can watch with me. Like I said, it kind of helps you to be able to stay up. If you want to go back and watch the other ones, find out more about the family, go for it. Just like I said, hit the subscribe button, and then that way you can keep up with it. And of course, as always, if you enjoy the content, hit the like button. That way, when YouTube sees all this, they go, hey, someone actually likes her. Someone maybe besides my family. But anyways, so, like I said, hit that. And as always, if these names seem familiar to you, if you're sitting here going, wait a minute, I have a picture that looks a lot like that, we might be related. We really might be related. If the name, the picture, if you're sitting here looking at it going, I think I remember seeing that in Grandma's photo album from when I was a kid, like I said, we might be related. So anyways, like I said, leave comments, if you're someone who I don't know personally, like my uncle's daughters, and, you think we might be related, let me know, because I would love to find out some more about the family members that we have lost contact with. But anyways, enough of that. I am going to let y'all get into the pictures, and we'll talk a little bit about them as we go along. So I need to begin this with Uncle Merrill. He was the 6th of 8 kids, and the 4th living one. 2 of them died at birth. He got into the military at a young age, and as you can see, he got into horses. Something about Uncle Merrill was the fact that he was actually a Guinness Book World Record holder for riding the most horses Roman style at one time, which back then was a pretty good feat. He stayed in the military most of his life, and he spent most of his time in the cavalry, going around doing shows and showing off his skill with being able to ride horses. And by the way, horses seem to be a thing in my family. He did get married, but I really think that the military was his first love, and that was what he enjoyed. He really, really, really loved being in the cavalry and riding and getting to do all the things that you do as a horse soldier. Truthfully, I'm a big horse person too, so I mean that really kind of appeals to me. There's some point I have got to find the information and find out just exactly when it was that he was in the Guinness Book. That's something for a later research. But anyways, like I said, just enjoy a couple of the pictures here, especially this last one. This last one I really love. I'm too scared to do anything like this, jumping over a fence, but hey, he did it. Now, Uncle Enel, he was the youngest of 8, which means, of course, he was the 8th child that was born. And he was actually only 2 years older than my grandfather. And it made them really, really close. In fact, there's an incident that I will talk about in a later segment when I'm talking about my grandfather that happened between the two of them, and it was something that changed the course of my grandfather's life. But he, like I said, he was the youngest, he was the baby, and he only got to enjoy being the baby of the family for a short period of time. He did end up having a child or two. I don't know what happened to the girl, but I do know that the boy did eventually grow up. His name I can't pull up right at the moment, and I don't have the name for him, but he did grow up, and following in the line of his uncle, he joined the military. Navy, of course, but hey, it's the military, and he served. And lastly, my grandfather's brother. Even though his name was James Neal, everyone called him Neal. And he was military also. He served very proudly for a very long period of time, and he really excelled being in the military. If I remember right, I believe he worked with dogs, worked with a canine unit. And like I said, he did pretty well. He was very happy being in the military. He went all over the world. He and his wife, they had 2 children who I have mentioned. My mother and my uncle's cousins, Patsy and Ruthie, who they were really close to. They spent a lot of time together, and of course, they were military brats, so they did move around some too. But, like I said, he did well. I'm not sure where all he was stationed. I know at one point he was stationed in South Korea, because he and his wife did eventually adopt 2 little South Korean boys, and they brought them home and raised them as their own kids. I know after that, at some point, they also adopted a little Mexican boy, and they raised him also. I know I have pictures coming up here really soon of the 2 little boys that he and his wife adopted. And right now I can't remember his wife's name, and I don't have the information with me to remember. But yeah, he and his wife, they had a big heart, and they had 2 beautiful girls, and they wanted to have a bigger family. And so he took the opportunity to adopt 3 little boys and to bring them into his family and into his home. In fact, the pictures are coming up here any moment of the 2 little Korean boys. They weren't brothers in their native land. There they are. They weren't brothers in their native land. They were just 2 little boys that he could adopt, and he brought them home. Like I said, they raised them and raised all 3 boys up to adulthood. And this last picture is one of my favorite. It's one that I showed earlier. Two of them fishing. What a fish. Still got to get the information for that guy. Everybody, I hope y'all enjoyed those pictures of my uncles. All of them are my uncles, even though one of them was my grandfather's brother. Like I said, I hope maybe you learned a little bit and got something out of it and enjoyed it, because honestly, I've enjoyed going through this family history stuff and remembering the stories that my mother and my uncle told me. I remember all these stories, and it's like sometimes putting the faces with the things that I remember hearing. You're sitting here looking at them going, okay, yeah, all right, I get it now. There's so many stories, and I'm afraid maybe I have forgotten a few, because there are things that sit in the back of my mind going, okay, now which one was this? Was this the uncle, or was this one the brother? But like I said, there's lots of stories, and every family has a story, no matter who you are. There is something in your past. Last week there was a story of my grandfather and a role that he played in World War II in a pretty significant event that happened. Anyone who hasn't watched that, you really need to go back. If you don't watch any of the others, go back and watch chapter 5 about my grandfather, Dick Rogers. Oh my word. I remember my mom telling me about that story, and it was like, oh my word, it's like, you're kidding me, Mom. No way, this could not have happened. But you know what? Sometimes our family members can surprise us. In fact, the one uncle there that I mentioned in his Guinness Book of World Record feat, who would have known that I had an uncle who was known for something? How could I have known that? Back then that was pretty spectacular. And truthfully today, as far as I'm concerned, it's still pretty spectacular. And how in the world it was that Hollywood did not snatch him up and take him away to be a stuntman, I do not know. But anyways, like I said, I hope you enjoyed all this. I hope that, like I said, maybe it's encouraging you to talk to your family. If you've got grandparents, aunts, uncles, great aunts and uncles, great grandparents, however far back you can go. I know I've said it before, but I'm still going to say it. Talk to them. Record what they say. We've got the technology. We can put their stories down firsthand. In some of my research and things I've been doing, I see stories of people that it's like that they were born like in the 1800s, like the 1840s and 1850s, and they're telling their life story on camera, and it's some of the first talking pictures is people recording this person's life, something that happened to them, something important that happened to them. I have a friend that, she loves Quanah Parker, and there's a movie out that actually has him in it. With the way as grainy as it was and as old as it was, you can't look at him and see like defined features like you can on any of them, but he's there. He was recorded. His movement, you could actually see how tall he was, how he was built, and how he moved. Record your family members. Talk to your great aunt, talk to your grandparents, and say, hey, I want to put together our family history. Sometimes, you might need to be a little bit sneaky, just pull out your camera phone and start the recording when they don't realize it. Get them talking and listen to the stories. Because like I said, there's too much of our family histories that are being lost, and there's generations that it has skipped the storytelling, and now the younger generations want to know. Do this for the other generations. Do this for those coming up who won't have the experience of knowing your grandparents, knowing your great-grandparents, knowing your aunts and uncles. Let them know what life was like, the things that happened, the stuff that they did, the things that they were active in. Like I said, do a little research. There are free sites out there, And as we go along, I am going to introduce you to some of the free sites when I come across them. In fact, a friend of mine gave me a couple of free sites to go to that I'm going to look at. You might go back in there and find that some relative signed up for something you didn't know. You might have a relative that fought on the North or fought in the South during the Civil War. You might have a relative who was, in Philadelphia at the time of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. You might have someone who lived at some historical time in some historical city. And you don't know this unless you look it up. Honestly, I've gone back and I've actually looked at some of mine, and I have found ancestors born in the 1700s. And that got pretty exciting. But of course, that's going to be for later storytelling, and I'll tell you all about that later. But anyways, I hope everyone has a wonderful week, and I hope to see y'all again next week. Bye.